Show number 21.
This Otaku's
Life.
I'm into my 30s, and I don't feel that old. I certainly don't look that old. And my interests and the things that I like in the world, to me, seem ageless. And I think that's true about a lot of fandoms and a lot of things that are interesting to people. I mean, if you look at any fandom, you can find all ages. Even if the demographic for that interest, that fandom, is meant to be young or meant to be adult, you will always find the opposite of the intention of the age range. And so when I think about the things that I like in the world, maybe I am not as much of an adult as I should be considering my age, but when I think about it, I don't feel that old, and I really do feel to some degree ageless. Of course, context has everything to do with it. If I'm surrounded by kids, obviously I will feel like an adult, and I will admit at times when I'm surrounded by adults who are acting like children, maybe at times I'm embarrassed or mad that I'm the only adult in the room. But when I recall back in time of all the things that I've done, I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about my age. I've been working in IT for over 15 years. I've been podcasting for over 6, and I've been editing for more than a decade. And yet these are things that I still have skills and talents for, to me don't reflect my age. However, I had a recent conversation with my father, and we were talking about my grandfather, and how during his lifetime, the light bulb was invented and became common, running water, the automobile, radio became common, TV became common, movies became common, records, CDs, and computers became common. And if you think about that, that's amazing. I could go on. Airplanes. It astounds me. But during his generation, a lot occurred. A lot of technology became mainstream, became what we are used to today. And in my generation, I grew up with PCs starting to become a little bit more common. And today's generation of kids grow up with iPods and iPads and laptops. They're not those bulky amber or green screen devices that I was used to when I was growing up as a kid. Camcorders, video cameras, digital SLRs. This is new technology that has become more and more mainstream, as well as gaming consoles. And so maybe I'm recalling some of these things and you're starting to feel old, but I don't. This is just what occurred in my generation. And so if I evaluate somebody who I work with or who just got out of school, the experience, the interest in things that they know and can do are much different than my generation. And I don't want to think too harshly on somebody. I don't want to say, they don't know anything about photography, because their point and click camera takes care of all the work. However, when my father was a kid, he had a black and white photo studio. So clearly he knows far more about film than I will ever know. I believe that this is really about your attitude. If you want to feel old, you want to act old, you will be old. I think every day is a new experience, and there's something to be learned by that. Age definitely is important. There's a lot of discrimination against age. When I started out in IT, I was still very young, and I did not get a lot of respect, and that only occurred when I jumped from one job to another. And as I built my experience, it didn't matter. And then eventually, I started getting closer to an age where I looked like I was in my mid-20s. And then, naturally, the respect came, regardless of whether how many years I had in the can in doing this type of work. So age is important. It's very important. And as kids, we can't wait to grow up. And then we realize there's responsibility. And then we want to be young again. And so age is a lot of things to me, because at my core, I'm still young at heart. This week we have a contribution from Karl.
There's a famous New Yorker cartoon from July of '93 by Peter Steiner. I'm sure you've seen it. It's the one that says, "On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog." It's a pretty poignant statement, especially for its time, about the phenomenon of internet anonymity. And while internet anonymity has in some ways begun to erode over time, it's still possible to find yourself being either misunderstood or misrepresented. Internet fandom is another interesting phenomenon. A person can belong to a community without ever meeting the other members of that community in person. You can feel as though you know someone without ever having seen them or heard their voice or even really knowing their name. We get the immediacy of nearly instantaneous communication via email, forums, or chat. We can share our passions via blogs, podcasts, and other media. We can even share the objects of our fandom, legally or otherwise, in more ways than ever before, and we can do this with people all over the world. There was a time not so long ago when fandom was at the mercy of the post office, the magazine publishers, the convention schedule, schedule, and even our means of transportation, people would still meet, but in smaller, local groups. I suspect this is where many of the initial friendships in most fandoms developed. Don't get me wrong, I know these meetings and clubs still exist, but not with the same prevalence they used to have. In a lot of ways, that's a shame. Heck, in most ways even. But for good or ill, the internet has opened or reopened fandom to a great many people. Personally, it's been a boon to me. As far as I know, there are no local clubs for my fandom where I live, and I doubt I would feel comfortable or welcome if there were. Similarly, I seriously doubt that I will ever set foot in a convention. I can't say if I would feel comfortable in the setting or not, but such trips require time and resources that are not necessarily mine to solely commit to anymore. So, on the internet, nobody may know you're a dog, but they also don't assume that you're a 43-year-old married father of 2 either.
Thank you, everyone, for continuing to download and listen, and some of you are starting to contribute, and as I said before, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm not going to talk more about it other than 2 ways you can contribute. Keep it really short. If you want to help us make show IDs, all we ask you to do is just record some audio and say, "This Otaku's life," with pauses in between. The cleaner the audio, the better the opportunity or chance that we'll be able to do something with it and have it in the show. Also, if you want to contribute like Karl did, it's real easy. Just, again, record us some audio and send it to us about anything we've talked about, or maybe even a new subject or a consolidation of several ideas that we've already discussed. Again, the show is not just about me, but it's about everybody, and we want a contribution from you, not just you to listen and download, which is cool by itself. So thank you again for continuing to download and listen. I appreciate the numbers. I appreciate the downloads. I appreciate that people are interested in what we're doing. So if you want to reach out and contact us, it's real easy. We have Twitter at thisotakuslife. We also have email at thisotakuslife@gmail.com. And if by some chance you got this podcast without going to the website, well, we have a website as well, and that is thisotakuslife.com. Thanks again, everyone, for continuing to listen and download. I've said that enough, and just want to let you know we appreciate it. And until next week, everyone, have a good one.